I had strong intuition as a child, but no more. Can intuition be regained or developed as we release toxicity both on the inside and the outside? My answer is absolutely yes. We can learn how to awaken our intuition, and I've learned about a 2-stage process to do exactly this. The first stage is very simple. We need to heal the trauma that's dysregulating our nervous system and clouding our perception. This will take you 3 to 5 years, and then once you've done that process, the second step is to dedicate yourself intentionally to a very rigorous educational effort where you're going to be learning about the best principles of the white magician and dedicating your life more or less to an everyday introspective awareness of post-cognitive expansion, and that's going to take you several decades until the end of your life. With this 2-step process, super simple, of course, it's a bit of a joke, it's not an easy thing, but it is literally simple. Heal trauma and everyday introspective practice. That's the aim of this video, and full disclaimer, I am not interested in contributing to anyone's grandiose empathic narrative of specialness. This isn't a video where you can learn how to harness your intuition to dissociate from reality and have imaginal conversations with extraterrestrials, or have a step up against your competition in romance or business because of your intuitive sixth sense. I think those videos are lame. I think it's a waste of time. I am going to teach you how to improve your intuition at a very advanced level, and I do recognize that even having said this, there is a risk that intuition, much like intellect, can be used for either good or evil, and anything along the spectrum of good and evil. It's my hope that bringing forwards these 2 books, you will be calibrated towards using that gift for service. That is the ultimate intention of this high-level conversation on intuition. So let's begin with the super practical first stage, which is healing trauma. I've got this book here, Awakening Intuition, and full transparency, I very rarely recommend anyone to read an intuition development book on its own. This is perhaps the 5th or the 6th book that I've read explicitly on the topic of improving your intuition, and it's the only one that's left in my library. I've banished the rest because they weren't that useful. Once you understand the idea of trauma healing and meditative practice, you've really gotten everything that you need from a purely intuition-based book. But nonetheless, this is a good one, and there's a quote that I want to read before we go into the deep dive with Alice Bailey and her 1934 classic, Treatise on White Magic. So, let me get the quote for you. Where do we begin? Well, in summary, from page 34, we have the 3-stage process. Let me read you the quote. There are 3 basic steps in training the mind for optimal development of intuition. The first step is quieting the mind. Any form of meditative discipline will contribute to your ability to do this. Physical relaxation is associated with a quiet mind, thus training in relaxation is an important aspect of this work. The second step is learning to focus attention. So we quiet the mind, and then we focus our attention, or concentrate on that aspect of reality that one chooses to contact at a particular time. And the third step is a cultivation of a receptive, non-judgmental attitude that allows intuition to come into conscious awareness without interference. Key sentence here. You cannot make intuition happen, but following the 3 steps outlined above prepares you to receive and acknowledge it when it does. And I wrote here on the page, hopefully you can see that, silence, focus, and receptivity. If you've seen my videos before, this is my analogy of taking the trauma pipe of baggage and wounding, and if you have intuition as a clear liquid that's going through a dirty, crappy pipe, the water on the other end is going to be brown and filled with excrement. If you're filled with excrement, psychologically, cognitively, emotionally, because you've got unresolved family issues or issues with former lovers or issues at large, every issue of every possible type, it's going to tint your perception of that intuitive water that comes through. It's going to literally come out as something that it wasn't when it came through at the beginning. And this is why you'll often have people who are unfortunately mentally disturbed, or they have some kind of underlying mental health issue. If they take something very extreme, like a psychoactive substance that takes them to an altered reality, they'll often see demons. The debate is out whether they're seeing real entities or projections of their own unresolved trauma, but at the very least, for the sake of this single metaphor, the water that's coming in is being wrapped up in the person that it's going into. So we need to quiet the mind, focus the attention, and be receptive. But to quiet the mind, you also need to quiet the body. And to quiet the body, it is well worth your time to look into somatic and embodied therapies. We look at the nervous system. Most people who are interested in intuitive development, this might be you, this might not be you, but most people are oriented more towards the imaginal. They're more interested in the heady way of existing. They're quite creative people, they're emotionally sensitive people, and they are interested in things like dreams and mysticism and conspiracies and everything that's kind of outside of the box. This is a very tricky territory to be in, because often it's wrapped up in childhood experiences where you've had to be hypervigilant of threat. So that same hypervigilant skill set then gets applied to the otherworldly potential realm that you're going to explore. And of course, this creates a very paranoid and existential issue. But fundamentally, if we strip this all the way back, there's a dysregulated nervous system. There's very high highs, erratic, buzzing highs, and then crushing lows. Most people at the early stages of wanting to improve their intuition want to try and maximize their time spent on this spiritually elated seeing beyond the veil territory and minimize the time spent in the trenches of, I suppose, the exact contrast, the everyday experience of things just being normal. Of course, it's oversimplification, but that's the rough path. People are dysregulated and they will favor one end without the other end, forgetting that the way to spend more time up here is actually to enjoy the rhythm in between and be able to guide yourself, to be able to focus, second stage in that process, to be able to focus your attention on a consistent basis towards the intuitive realm. You won't be able to do that if your nervous system is completely out of whack because you're still smoking, drinking, and actively taking drugs. You're still addicted to certain romantic experiences which are not doing you any good. And generally speaking, you are spending way too much time on one of these, and you are dopaminergically bedazzling yourself off the cliff on a daily basis. That is nervous system rewiring 101. Trauma work goes way deeper. It's going to take you realistically 2 years at the quickest. 3 to 5 years is the general 80% over the threshold of childhood trauma, coming to terms with what happened and actually healing it inside of your body. You'll quiet the mind and the body. You'll focus the mind and the body. And then you'll be receptive at the imaginal and in the physical. This is why people sometimes feel like they get gut feelings, right? This is a really important moment in the conversation. That moment where you get the intuitive hit of like, ooh, I can't trust this person. That person said very trustworthy words, but intuitively, we know that they're lying. We feel that in our guts. Or maybe someone says the same series of intuitive words, and you perceive with your third eye vision that they had a little twitch. They had like they're talking like this. They did that. They'd like, there was some energy that came up in their face. And you know it's because they're lying. You intuitively saw behind their persona mask kind of game playing situation. However, you cannot accurately 100% of the time rely on that intuitive perception if you've got an unresolved childhood situation where you grew up with a mother or a father who consistently lied to you or bent the truth in one way or another, because you're going to be hyper-vigilantly aware of that entire culture that's still living inside your system. Maybe they were lying, and maybe your gut gave you the right intuitive impulse where, oh, they really were lying, or maybe you've actually just got a bit of indigestion because you ate too much dairy the night before, or you didn't go to the bathroom an hour ago when you should have. Maybe the twitch on their face is the fact that they're a dirty scoundrel and they're trying to set you up for a 5-month down the road kind of haha, I got you moment. Or it could be that they're stressed about a situation with their wife and they actually need to cry because they're a hurt person and like they just nothing to do with you. This is a very common grandiose pitfall trap of someone who over-identifies with being empathic and beautifully spiritually gifted. They will overread things which aren't anything to do with intuition, and at the same time, you need to know when your intuition is spot on. But it might not be as spot on as you think it is, and actually admitting with humility, I've done this myself, when I've admitted with humility that my intuition isn't always correct, it can either be the center of the target or 180 degrees in the other direction. We just selectively tend to focus on the times that we were right. This is a real human thing to do. We can think back, I'll do it right now, I can think back intuitively, let's say, certain clients that I've decided not to work with, I'll get a message from someone and the words will all be like, this was no, it's a no from me. For whatever reason, I'm not the person for this client. And I say no. I can remember a moment like that. But I also am not sharing with you the moments where maybe I haven't chosen to work with someone because of my intuition, and actually I just missed a wonderfully nourishing journey for the both of us. I can never know because that door has closed. I could never know if maybe a certain romantic partner that I did or did not pursue was the intuitively correct choice. We've got probability in our favor, 90% towards maybe we were right, but that little humility pill on the other side is super important because you're not going to be able to quiet your mind and then be able to focus and then be receptive if you actually receive the intuition, and this is going back to the pipe metaphor, you receive the water into your vessel, your vessel being you, but because you haven't got an open pipe where you let it land and you assess it and go, that's what it is. Instead, you are fixed on a narrative of like building a trench where the water will always go in and it'll go at these right angles and it'll always come out to the outcome of, I'm in danger, this person's trying to screw me over. Intuition came in and it may not be muddy anymore, but you lead it all the way down towards the paranoid hypervigilant or the really overly optimistic, everything's working out for me and my intuition says that this is going to be the most beautiful experience ever. Both are dysfunctional. But that's still a very broad 3-stage practical process just to get us started with this conversation. You can read the book for yourself in your own time. I'm not including this book in the course I'm making. It's not one of my top 104 books. I haven't picked this up in over a year. I just thought it was appropriate for the video, but you can tell I'm not too overly invested in books like this, even though they're still very wonderful. There's lots of wonderful advice in there, but it is nothing compared to A Treatise on White Magic by Alice Bailey. Before we go into this, I'm going to take a sip of coconut water and intuitively resolve my dry mouth. There we go. Nice disclaimer before we go into this. This is a 1934 theosophy book. You don't need to go all the way into occult esoteric angles. People who are raised Christian or Muslim, or maybe they're from an Eastern faith, may find that this is like a slippery slope towards strange occult New Age territory. It could potentially be that. I want the framing of all of the quotes I bring forwards from this book to be inspired, poetic, imaginal exercises. We're talking about intuition, but crucially we're talking about post-rational cognition. The reason I love Alice Bailey's books so much, and you can see that there's a few more over here in the background, I think there's 10 to 15 Alice Bailey books on that shelf, is that she has the highest level writing about the imaginal and the esoteric, and you're just going to, I've got 4 quotes to bring out for you. She's just going to guide the whole rest of this conversation, because once we've done the trauma work, we need the imaginal, educational, intellect and intuition combined kind of practice to actually reclaim and harness our intuition. Let's go straight to the book. I've got 4 quotes to read. I'm going to read them in succession with commentary in between. Highly recommend that you pick this book up for yourself. I've been getting many wonderful comments on my latest videos of people seeing that this one's a standout text, and that is for good reason. First quote from the book, Alice Bailey, writing almost 90 years ago. Let's pay attention. This is a definition of intuition. It's a higher grade kind of conversation than the previous book, so let's focus. Myself as well. The intuition is in reality only the appreciation by the mind of some factor in creation, some law of manifestation, and some aspect of truth, known by the soul, emanating from the world of ideas and being of the nature of those energies which produce all that is known and seen. What that basically means is that the intuition is tapping into something which already exists beyond our perception. The extension of the intuition that flows down into our vessel, we ask ourselves the question of, well, where is it flowing from? What is the etheric world? What is a potential astral realm? I mean, there's definitions there. Astral and etheric are not the same thing, but let's placeholder, let's say the etheric realm. From where is that etheric information coming in? Where do we hear the signal? Where's the source of that intuitive signal? It is somewhere beyond our regular perception, and Alice Bailey's perception would be that the knowledge of the soul is the receiving instrument which is tuned towards the intuitive signal. Let's continue to the next quote, where we're looking at how people refuse to basically hear that signal. And if you follow the antenna idea of tuning the radio station, your soul or your heart being the receiver which needs to be tuned to correct intuitive otherworldly perception, this is why most of us don't do it. Second quote from the book. Men deaden their inner voice that bears witness to the life hereafter, and they drown the words that echo in the silence by the noise and whirl of business, pleasure, and excitement. The whole secret of success in treading the occult path depends upon an attitude of mind. When the attitude is one of concrete materialism, of concentration upon form, and a desire for the things of the present moment, little progress can be made in apprehending the higher esoteric truth. What Alice Bailey is really trying to get us to pay attention towards here is having an awareness of the day-to-day, having an awareness of our business and of our material relationships, but basically making a pretty critical commentary on how most people are so fundamentally earthy that they cannot see beyond the veil. They can't even imagine that there's something even like a veil and there's something even beyond the veil. But of course, you're not that kind of person. You're, 16, 17 minutes into a video on intuition, and you're already very spiritually receptive. You're not in the common cluster of consciousness. Doesn't mean that you're incredibly special and better than everyone else, but you're attuned to the outer world. In fact, I'd wager to say that one of your major issues is going to be tuning yourself back into the earth and getting more concrete and more embodied. People don't watch videos like this if they're already very earthy and enjoy nothing more than just going and digging a hole in the garden and going for a beer. It's not, I don't know who enjoys that, but you get the point I'm trying to make. People deaden their inner signals, and if you've deadened your signal, your receiver, you're really not going to be able to do any of this, and that goes back to the trauma work. You can clean off your antenna by doing the trauma work. Let's go deeper into the practice. This is a 650-page book. I've got just 4 quotes to read out, but you can see just how heavily I highlight this book, so really just buy it for yourself. We're talking now about how to actually improve your intuition at the highest level. So this is perhaps the most important minute from this whole video. I will let Alice Bailey speak. The better educated a man may be, this is of course gendered, but a person, I'll actually change it. The better educated that a person may be, the wider their range of knowledge and scope of world interests, the easier it will be for the teacher on the inner side to render, through their agency, the knowledge to be imparted. What Bailey's referring to here is this idea of an inner guide or an inner voice, or even potentially some kind of angelic being, or even the voice of God. Frequently, the dictated data may be entirely foreign to the receiver. This is the phenomena of channeled texts, for example. They must have a certain amount, therefore, of education and be themselves a profound seeker of truth before they will be chosen to be the recipient of teachings that are intended for the general public or for esoteric use. Above everything else, they must have learned through meditation to focus themselves on the mental plane. This is going from the physical to the emotional to the mental to the etheric or astral. I suppose it's astral, then etheric, then causal planes, and then get to Atman kind of territory. But principle here is you must be receptive, and to be receptive, you also need to be highly educated, which takes us just a few pages over towards what I believe to be the final quote. Here we go. Fantastic. This is the crescendo, and then we'll sum it all together. Hopefully this is bringing some ideas into your mind. You're listening to this. If I've still got your attention and feeling inspired to buy the book for yourself, I really am not doing the full justice for just how profound this book is. This is the kind of book that you want to spend months studying. You need to educate yourself, and in the process of buying a book like this, you will definitely educate yourself to be able to be much more attuned to clothe the intuitions that you have in very concrete language and concrete action. Going to finish the quotes and then come right back to full presence. Final extract from Alice Bailey. Let's wrap this all together and improve our intuition in a practical way. Final quote. It's about service. And the reason that I bring in this quote out is that intuition is a tool, and I believe that if you're genuinely on the spiritual path, you should be morally attuned towards helping yourself and helping the other in an individual and collective sense in a way which is appropriate and intentional. And Alice Bailey is making a very strong point here about why intuition should be used in service of service itself. It's a skill which isn't to be used selfishly, it should be extended outwards. Final quote. True service is the spontaneous outflow of a loving heart and an intelligent mind. It is the result of being in the right place and staying there. It is produced by the inevitable inflow of spiritual force and not by strenuous physical plane activity. It is the effect of man being what he truly is, a divine son of God, and not by the studied effect of his words or deeds. A true server gathers around them those whom it is their duty to serve and aid by the force of their life and their spiritualized personality, and not by their claims or loud speaking. In self-forgetfulness, crucial idea in all of theosophy, self-forgetfulness. In self-forgetfulness, they serve. In self-abnegation, they walk the earth and they give no thought to the magnitude or the reverse of their accomplishment and have no preconceived ideas as to their own value or usefulness. Final sentence, let this land. If you're interested in improving your intuition, please make sure that this is what you're doing it for. They live, serve, work, and influence, asking nothing for the separated self. That's where this goes to. If you're improving your intuition for purely selfish gains to get ahead in romance or finance or go to some kind of otherworldly plane where you can have conversations with entities and then use their guidance to get your new car, you're missing the point. You've got an opportunity to develop a skill set and develop a way of perception which is decently rare. Of course, you're one of thousands of people that are going to see this video. You're not the rarest of rare, but in terms of global perspective, there's probably a couple million people in this lifetime who will truly take a path like this seriously. You are objectively a small portion of that group, but that group is still massive, and that group, if rightly oriented, should be using that as a form of subtle activism to create some kind of tangible impact in the world. But intuition need not be so grandiose. If you can use your intuitive capacity to be able to tap into things which most people do not see, in an everyday sense. You're working at your company and you can see opportunities for the company. Let's imagine it's a good company that does good in the world. You're seeing collaborations or you're seeing financial patterns with your, I noticed this. I feel in my heart, interesting statement here. I feel in my heart that working with that collaborator rather than that collaborator is going to be best for our outcome of generating more money for this charity. And you follow that intuitive path based on also having a keen rational understanding, or maybe you're in disagreement with your partner and you use that intuitive moment of kind of quelling down the intellectual bickering and you go, wait, whoa, it's because they're scared. And you stop attacking and you pull back a bit and go, are you afraid of something right now? That's a really good use of intuition because you're using it in service of hopefully reconnecting in a more loving way. It can be on the individual, it can be on the one-to-one, it can be in the one as part of a group, it can be you using the internet or using written communication to communicate with thousands of people. But fundamentally, when you're in the flow of intuitively guided action, you will be self-forgetful because you're tapping into something which shifts your center of perception away from your singular egoic identity. I'm not saying that you need to abandon your ego. I think it is ridiculous and stupid advice to recommend that anyone kill their ego. The majority of people who are watching videos like this need a stronger, healthier, more robust ego, not a toxic, distorted ego, but a healthy ego, because someone with a healthy ego cares about what happens to them in their life and makes a good impression on others, whereas someone who's unhealthy in their egoic identity, of course, has many other different disturbing traits. Most people who've gotten this far into a video like this will benefit from a really strong, healthy ego, but an ego that has openings to be able to see beyond the veil and tap into that spontaneous sea of intuitive awareness, which is always there, but just needs a bit of focusing to really be able to grasp and turn into something. It's very interesting for me at a moment like this in the video because it feels like I've said almost nothing. And that's why I don't recommend people read books on intuition. In the particular, I think intuition is almost a byproduct of having done the trauma healing. When you frame it from a certain angle, of course, there's intuition in so many forms. It's difficult to talk about. Like if you're having a conversation about God, you can only talk about God, which means that you've talked around the concept of God. You never pinpoint the end point and go, that's God right there. I know what I'm talking about. Intuition's very much the same. I think videos like this, generally speaking, are quite boring. I don't watch videos on how to improve my intuition. I don't read books on how to improve my intuition. If there's someone who already knows that you have intuitive capacity, your primary responsibility is clearing out your pipe and creating a lifestyle where you're self-regulated to be able to tap into the intuition and apply it in an appropriate lane. You can intuitively use that extra energy to intuitively give back in a way which is appropriate, service-oriented, and truly honors your unique personality and unique skill set. I can't even begin to touch upon the complexity of that in a video or even 10 videos because it's your unique life. You can stop watching videos on intuition and stop watching videos on spiritual development and stop looking for external information which is going to give you really just a variety of diversions and wonderful meanderings back to the same point of healthy body, healthy mind, healthy soul, and just perceive with those three elements of health the world that's actually happening and do with that what you will. That's the end point of the video. How do you reclaim your authenticity? At a certain point, you respectfully stop listening to teachers and you respectfully move beyond the words on the page to actually live the practice of being an intuitive being and not getting wrapped up in the story of what it means to be an intuitive individual. If you can tap in and harness and apply on an everyday sense with books like Treatise on White Magic and Awakening Intuition being important guide points at the start of that journey, or frequent reflection points as you're going deeper, I think you're doing a good job. You can recover your intuition, but the final closing question that I'd really end this on, final question, what are you going to use that intuition for? You're going to use it for good? You're going to use it for evil? How good? How evil? Which lane? What's the point? Like improving your intelligence, or learning how to play a musical instrument, or any other skill that can be developed. Where are you going with that? Is it worth you doing? Why are you trying to do it? Just something to reflect upon. Nonetheless, I'll see you over in the next video, where we're going to be continuing the conversation towards, I think, a video on... I don't know. My intuition fails me. It's over there nonetheless.